Welcome to the podcast about Lighting Matters. Our unflinching conversations uncover the nuances and complexities which shape the craft of lighting design.
We explore the pivotal whys behind a lighting designer's choices and find honest answers to your most challenging lighting questions because lighting matters. Hey, welcome to the Lighting Matters podcast. I'm so excited about our guest today. But first, I'm Lisa Reed with Reed Burkett Lighting Design in St. Louis.
And I'm Avi Moore with More Lights in Chicago. And we have our guest, Katherine. I should have asked you before, Katherine. I'm going to screw up how you say your last name.
Stekr.
Stekr. See, my oldest is in kindergarten, and he's teaching me how to sound out words because I never learned that. So,
that's interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Like how to actually sound out words.
My dad didn't learn that either. There's a method of teaching people to read that doesn't include phonics. And it's a struggle then for folks who didn't get it. Yeah.
Memorization is all about memorization, right? Can is can, and stack is stack, and stop is stop. It's not stop.
I know. Mind blowing. That's how my dad was taught too.
Jeez, Avi, you're like doing double time when you read then.
I am a very slow reader. That's why I love your podcast and many other books on tape, things like that, because I can process it versus, and I'm also partially dyslexic. So that makes all of it, I always like to say Lexley Disclia, right? Makes everything even more fun.
Yeah.
But we digress. Katherine, welcome to the podcast. And we always like to start with a little, tell us about yourself. And how'd you get into this crazy world of lighting fun?
Well, thank you for having me. Your guys' podcast is so much fun to listen to. So I am excited to be a guest. My name is Katherine Stekr. I currently live in Benton, Arkansas. We recently moved here, husband's job, but I have been a lighting designer for almost, 16, 17 years. I am a graduate of the University of Colorado through their architectural engineering program. I'm actually one of the last classes of Davis and Delora before they left. And then Sandra Vasquez I was her first class. So I got into lighting my father told me and my sisters that he would pay for college if we became accountants or engineers. And so he was super excited because he's an accountant. He thought he was going to have 3 accountants. He was really excited. He has 3 engineers. So he was like, oh, darn. So I got into college thinking I was either going to become a doctor or manufacture explosives. So I started as a chemical engineer in college. And I love chemistry and I love science and I love kind of biology and all that. But I hit a wall first semester calculus class away from home. Just really, really, really struggled to pick up, complicated math. And I had a really difficult calculus professor that told me I should quit engineering school and probably go get a business degree. And so, I was devastated. This was 2004. The engineering school is 20% women, 80% men. So I took this, D on a test and walked into my advisor's office, who was Bob Davis. And he was like, I don't think you should listen to her. How about you give me 1 semester, take these classes, and then we'll talk at the end of that next semester. And I was like, oh, okay, fine. And it was all these lighting classes. And so, of course, I then stayed in lighting because it's not, it's a good mix of engineering and creativity, but the community that exists in lighting and how everyone always shows up for each other, even as, young students, there's so much involvement with the industry. It just felt like, like home. So after that, I went and I moved to LA, worked for HLB in LA, then met a boy and moved home. And I worked for an engineer and an architect for about 8 years. And then I went back to HLB and worked for them in their Denver office for another 7 or so years. And just last year, I decided it was time. And I started my own lighting design company called STEK Design Co. And we're going on 3 months. And it's been really fun. It's a lot of learning. Not just about lighting, but business, accounting, how to just be brave every day. So far, so good.
Congratulations. That's huge.
Thank you. Yeah. The support of people who run firms like under 20 employees is really, it's not, I don't know why I would be surprised, but it's really lovely. There's such a lovely community of small business owners in the lighting industry. So I've been able to have a safe place to ask, all the dumb questions that just pop up on the everyday.
Yeah, feel free to call anytime. I mean, Lisa, you're in the larger firm category now, I think.
Yeah, Lisa, you're no longer a small business owner. You're like a conglomerate taking over the world.
We're still under 20. Our 19th employee just started yesterday, though. So excited.
Wow.
I love the love story of you and Carla's friendship that's been kind of played out on I just get so much joy from it. So I really appreciate you guys from sharing that publicly, because it's like, oh, this is so sweet.
Thank you.
Well, and it's Carla's fault that I'm actually in architectural lighting design.
It's Carla's fault.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She wields a lot of power.
That Jayhawk connection between the three of us Carla, I do love all of I love the photo that you all have been posting from your wedding, Lisa.
It's so
Carla in the background. It's awesome.
Unusual to have wedding photo. I'm like trying to think, are there any there's a couple. My friend Chris Slaughter was at my wedding.
Oh, wow.
I'm still friends with.
I know Chris. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, do I have a picture of him at the wedding? I think I do.
It was Carla and I met freshman year in second semester, and we were sort of friends all the way through school, but it was 4 years later before we could find a picture of ourselves together. So, yeah.
Well, one that you could share publicly.
The wedding.
That you could share publicly.
No, yeah.
The weddings. Those wedding pictures were great.
Thanks. It was fun. It's fun. You said it, the camaraderie in lighting and the way we all support each other. And it's this big love fest. And we've talked about that multiple times on the podcast, I think. But also, I don't know, maybe that's a tool. How do we use that to communicate with our clients or to embrace them in that same kind of love of lighting?
I feel like when you're working with a consultant, doesn't have to be a lighting consultant necessarily, but you can tell that they really love and embrace what they do. The architect and subsequently the owner really, they feel that. You're just on projects sometimes where everybody just meshes so well together. And you're like, this is the best project team ever. The engineer's great. The contractor's great. Architect's great. Everybody understands. They're all in it together. And you're just like, this is the perfect one. And then you try to replicate that next project and you get just slightly different personalities. And you're like, oh, it's not quite as fine-tuned as the last one. But there are those occasional projects that are just like, this is why I want to do it. We're creating making change. We're building a beautiful building. It's thoughtful. The people that are going to exist in this building are going to just feel the effort and the love and the energy that went into it. So I think that they get that. I mean, most lighting designers that I know are, psychotically passionate about what we do, which is great. It. And they're such good cheerleaders to their, competition, in air quotes. I think it's unusual compared to other kind of consultants on a construction project.
I love that. Psychotically passionate about it.
I think really that's the title. We're psychotically passionate.
There's our title. 100%.
Like lighting nerds are.
Well, there was an interesting conversation that happened last week, and I think we were talking about it a little bit before we got started about this idea that lighting designers are one of the 4 visual professionals involved in a project. And Lisa, you brought that up. It was something that Thomas Patterson, one of our former guests, brought up in a meeting, and it's an interesting idea. Lisa, you said you've been thinking about it a lot. Maybe you want to expand. Interesting to hear, Katherine, your thoughts too.
Yeah, I think that it really maybe elevates lighting to its proper place in the project team, that as a visual professional, because you have the architect, the interior designer, the landscape architect, and then who else is impacting the visual experience of a space? I mean, that's lighting designer. That's it. There are the 4 of us that impact what you see on a project. And, as a visual professional, of course, other disciplines throw things into the space that do impact what we see, not always positively.
Sprinkler heads.
They're not necessarily thinking. They're like, you know what? Fire. Must put out the fire.
Right.
Yeah, which is great. They're passionate about their
It's important.
discipline.
Yeah. It's funny, Lisa, when you first said that when we were talking earlier for visual professionals, I didn't immediately think about that we were crafting the visual experience, but we're the for people also that usually only have visual to the client. Like you rarely have an engineer, civil mechanical, like doing presentations to the client or to special interest groups. It's usually architect, engineer, landscape, and lighting, because we're also the four groups that are good, better, more well-practiced at presenting, getting kind of folks to understand where we're going, why we've done it. So we're visual in that way. We have a visual kind of direct line to our clients and our constituents.
Our very first podcast episode was about visualization, modeling of light, right? That's one of our ongoing challenges.
What's interesting, though, I always talk about in the theater. The first thing that always comes to me is what color black is that actor or actress going to wear? Because on a stage, you're in a black space, and only the lighting designer brings it all together. And I think that while I truly appreciate the four visual professionals, and I think that's very solid because we love our partners as we were talking about, I think there's one piece missing to that I'm, ridiculously passionate about, which is light actually brings it all together. And I've mentioned this before. Let's not forget luminaire number one, and maybe 1A, the sun and the sky. Today in Chicago, it's snowing. So, it's just sky glow. But with the research that is out, and I was talking earlier, tired to get technical to some people, but RP46, which is, I just happen to be staring at it because I want to read it. The psychological and behavioral effects of lighting. We now not only control the visual experience, but also the psychological and behavioral effects that people have in spaces.
Well, and honestly, those experiences are really what our clients want to hear about. That's what they want us to tell them that we're doing with their space. Is how am I going to feel in this space? How are people going to experience this space? I've literally had an architect tell me, don't talk to me about the beam spread. Don't talk to me about the color temperature. Just tell me how it's going to feel.
Yeah. I mean, it seems kind of a little overwhelming to have so much power. I mean, like in college, we were told, lighting has the power to ruin great architecture, if done poorly, and has the power to really elevate, architecture that maybe otherwise wouldn't be as impactful. I think I like that the IES has issued an RP about the less visual applications of lighting, because I think all of us practicing lighting designers understand there's a quality of lighting that's hard to articulate. Like I've been in meetings before where a client's like, for a hospital a couple of years ago, we don't want those Home Depot lights. And it's like, they weren't talking about the lights for sale in Home Depot. They were talking about the way going into Home Depot, the lighting made them feel. And when they said that, I was like, okay, let's unpack this. What don't you like about that? What is it making you feel? And then you can use that kind of common ground that you thread with your client, this is the only building they're going to build, pretty likely. So they're really nervous about the outcome, and being able to really understand their fear in that moment, we were able to then explain, how the lighting wasn't like Home Depot. I mean, the Home Depot and a hospital are, couldn't probably be farther apart in how you light them. But subsequently, using that and understanding that client's fear on that we were able to really understand and explain how they would perceive and feel in this hospital. And, ultimately having walked back through after construction with them, they're like, yeah, this doesn't feel at all like Home Depot. I'm like, well, great. This is great. I mean, they love it, but
it's not a Home Depot.
Sometimes when I mentor younger designers, I'm like, occasionally it's going to feel like we're manipulating our clients because we really understand the philosophy and the psychology behind it. And you have to do a lot of explaining and kind of like, come with me on this, come with me on this. And it feels a little like manipulation because you are telling them things that no rendering, no number, no beam spread is going to let them understand until they walk through the space and go, oh, that's what the lighting designer was talking about. Like we get so much trust placed in us as a industry. It's pretty profound.
And I gotta do it.
Do it.
Until everyone else knows they know better. Because what the lighting designer picked was too expensive or too complicated to control or blah, 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 blah. Right?
Trust until
pricing. Guilty until proven innocent, really, sometimes.
Well, and I think, Lisa, it comes back to your question about like, what are our goals for advocacy? It comes back to that, like, Katherine, what you're talking about is you get that trust, you get them to understand it, but then they still don't completely understand what your place is in this screwed up lighting, how does the light fixture get to the job site thing?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's so many other people who have so many other ideas that don't have the language that you just presented to them, but are directly connected to profitability and dollars and cents to get on the job site. And quite honestly, many of them are better salespeople than we are. But, it depends on the customer too, right? Some of them are attached to their pocketbook. Some of them care about.
I would say it's probably the challenge that our industry is facing right now. The impact of that, and I'll use air quotes, and this is a loose term, value engineering on both how the project actually gets built and what the quality is and how well it's controlled and how well it's maintainable, but also the impact of value engineering on the consultant's fee. Because I feel like the last 6 years at least, we're value engineering stuff in construction documents phase. Like we haven't even issued a permit set, and we're still, we're $8 gajillion over budget, but we can't. We were never given a budget. They can't really tell us what the budget is. They can't really tell you what that light costs, but we know we're $8 gajillion over. And so you spend 15, 30 hours of not designer time, but principal higher up time, because these are carefully curated conversations that need to be had from, heads of companies and offices to other heads of companies and offices, trying to explain exactly, we got the client on board, but now, Mr. Contractor, you missed that meeting. So we got to re-explain this, but not in fancy, thought-provoking language, but in numbers. And so there's so much effort that goes in that's not compensated. And it's really tricky because I think lighting designer fees are going up because, this client or this contractor is tricky and we're going to have this, 20 hours of VE that we need to account for. And then they're like, no, we can't afford that. But it's really difficult. I've been having these conversations with all kinds of lighting friends on like, how do we as a unit kind of start solving this? And, people are always like, well, it's in our spec and we really hold firm on our contract. And I'm like, nobody's not doing that. Like that's like everyone's doing that. So like, how else do we do this? I think it depends on the area you live in, like the relationship certain lighting designers have with their local representation. I mean, I think the advocacy, this might be a bit of a left turn, but I think, right, we have an IES group for the engineering of lighting, and we have the IALD for the kind of protecting the design quality of the profession. The LIRC has manufacturers, but the reps don't have a place to sit in a conference room with us and have discussions about this. I think they're a partner in a lot of these places that really should be at the table so they understand, how important they are. Because lighting is very complicated to get to site. And I don't think no one's going to ever simplify it. It's only probably going to get more complicated. But I think we shoot ourselves in the foot a little bit if we don't have all the players in the room. And I'm not saying we should have contractors at the IALD conference, but perhaps we should have reps because they're such an intermediary between all of the different pieces. I would be curious if inviting them, just like manufacturers, helps us start to step towards having more clarity with our clients on this chaos that happens it's like the last 10% of the project just throws everything out of whack.
And clarity on the roles of each of those folks. And I think that's where it gets a little fuzzy sometimes, is what is the rep's role. And even, nobody outside of our industry knows who's paying the reps, and there's just a lot of clarification that if we're all in the same room and everybody is willing to work in their designated space, it does work really well. But it's when it starts to get fuzzy and people start trying to do the jobs of other folks, or even just don't understand what each role is. And I think it's important for us to teach our young designers that, and also to teach our clients that.
Right. To extend that, we trust rep A. Hey, client, here's why you should trust rep A. Here's their job. Here's what they do. We should be able to accurately explain, I like sometimes lighting procurement, I like to explain as a black box. And the fact that, I should be able to articulate every single incremental step inside that black box because, if I am their client, the person talking about lighting can't tell them all of the arrows and the directionality at which a light fixture goes from scrap metal to the building, they're like, yeah, you don't understand it either. And now I have no trust in anything. And I'm going to trust Jimmy contractor who says he can save me $500,000. And then I'm like, well, I hope that Jimmy's writing you a check for $500,000 because let's be honest, I have yet to be on a project where that magically comes back to anyone's bank account. It always gets like eaten up in the ether. And it's like, you're not, could you just listen to us for 1 second? We would really, we're really good at this. Let us be in charge of it.
Right. Well, I think the other side of it is advocacy as a organization, right? I think that IALD needs to do a lot more work emphasizing the amazing work that its members do, and what a lighting designer is and what a lighting designer is not, right? What a lighting designer is as an advocate for the visual and apparently psychological and behavioral effects that light makes on your space, right? We are that fourth visual professional, right? And it has to come from there because, Katherine, you're doing that. I'm doing that. Lisa's doing that. Every single IALD member and even non-IALD members that are lighting designers, theatrical lighting designers, are doing this every day as their own independent firms or persons. But there is not something at the top that you can refer to, right? We all know what an architect does. And we know that because AIA in America and other places have their standards, says what a AIA registered architect does. We know what a landscape designer does because they have an association. They are very clear as to what their standards are. And the same thing with IIDA, ASID, right? Different kinds of interior designers, but interior designers explaining what they do. The interesting thing is you ask any member of those three organizations what IALD is, and I would be willing to bet that if you polled 100 people, 5 would know what IALD means and what that stands for, what a professional membership means. And then you could go even further and ask them if they know what LC means or CLD, and you'll get one of those 100 people. And that's what I think we need each of us to do independently, but also our organization, IALD, to do. And it's been my opinion, they should not do anything else. Don't fly anywhere. Don't meet about anything. Don't talk about anything else other than how do we take the profession from where we are today to where AIA, ASID, IIDA, and I don't know,
ASLA.
ASLA are.
Okay, so to play the devil's advocate a little bit, because outside of the US, the role of the lighting designer sits in a different, typically, they sometimes sit inside a manufacturer. Their path to get procurement is different. Their path occasionally to get compensated is different. How would you recommend the IALD globally describe a lighting designer when so many different people could call themselves a rep doing design for a client quickly because they couldn't afford a lighting designer is a lighting designer. Well, obviously, we're lighting designers. Interior designers play lighting designer a whole bunch because they understand the lit built environment. I think it's more complicated because we're not like licensed, stampable profession like architects, like interior designers, like landscape architects. It's very difficult, I think, to draw a really concrete circle around it. Obviously, the CLD, I think more so than the LC, is trying to head that direction. But because it's not there yet, I think the legitimacy of our profession struggles a little bit. Like, as someone who's a PE, you're like, okay, I know that they, took that test, they passed it. Like, there's the government has said they're good at this, right? Like, it seems like there should be a certification level governmental, test for lighting designers. I think that clarifies who's a lighting designer and who's not.
Well, I think the CLD and professional membership of the IALD get very close to that. But I think that you can create a box by defining, and I'm going to go back to Thomas and Lisa bringing this up. The lighting designer is the person who is ultimately responsible for the visual and behavioral effects of the light in that space. And whether they're a rep or a contractor or a manufacturer, I mean, the definition could be based on they're the responsible party. Just like the PE is the responsible party there, the architect's the responsible party, the structural engineer is the responsible party. And I think there's also potentially a scope of work that needs to be clarified. I've heard arguments both ways, but I guess my feeling is when you go to the AIA website, you go to ALA, you go to any of those, they have a standard, like, this is what our members do on a job.
Right. Kind of architecting for dummies. Like, hey, if you didn't know anything, you could read this and have a general understanding of what an architect does.
Yeah. I mean, my argument, I as you know, I'm very in love with lighting controls. I think that if you are a lighting professional, you are the visual professional, lighting visual professional, you have to design controls. How do you turn it on and off? How do you control the sky? How do you control the sun? If you're not doing that, then how are you actually adjusting and modifying the visual environment? By specifying the perfect light fixture? Yeah, right. I mean, and plus energy code, you're going to have controls anyway.
So that right there immediately separates lighting designer from an interior designer for sure. From a luminaire selector. It probably separates them from a rep to some degree. Like there are probably, yes, it's an education problem that likely needs to be. I feel like most things in life are education problems, but communication and education. We just need to raise the level of education out there on what lighting design is, and hey, like, who should be doing it? What should you be asking your lighting designer? If they're Jimmy who's pulling, lights out of the back of his hatchback, probably he's not your lighting designer. Compared to Lisa, who shows up with a plan and how she's going to control it and can explain and answer your questions. Like there's some level of professionalism that I think our clients should expect.
I think we've gone all around it, and we've talked about CLD and professional IALD membership, and we have all the pieces are in place. It's just a communication problem, and people don't know about it. And so, we're right there. We're right there. All we need to do is just get the message out about
somebody call Christopher.
Who we are.
I mean, in the IALD's defense, they are dealing with a lot of changes in how they function post-pandemic. Still, that is fundamentally making them kind of work differently. And so I think if we had never had that problem, maybe this wouldn't be an issue because we would have probably already tackled it. So they're hopefully dealing with that. I don't know. I'm not part of the IALD.
They are. So I was fortunate enough.
They are.
Yeah. So I hadn't been to Enlighten in a long time. Went out this year, had a long conversation with Andrea, and who's our current president of IALD, and then conversed with Christopher and said, look, we need an advocacy group. Committees carry interesting connotations, so let's just call it a group. And I said, yeah, you need to put some paperwork together and so on and so forth. It'll take a couple of months to put this all together. Said, when's your next board meeting? And it happened to be in 45 days. It's like, great. That's when you're going to approve it. And Lisa and I and a bunch of other people got together and we wrote a document and the board approved it. So we did just have our first board meeting, in true fashion. It is. I think IALD is dealing with a lot of struggles. There's a lot of things they want to do. And we all run businesses, right? So that's a challenge. And I don't know about you, Katherine, but, the committees, the IES committees and SEDG and all these other things that we're all doing, plus our businesses, plus our kids, plus
plus our podcasts.
Plus our podcast.
Yeah,
plus our podcast.
Like, just add more stuff to it.
Sorry.
Yeah, and writing software now too. I had a whole conversation about getting new software written for stuff. So it's like, so it's going to happen. It is happening. It's unfortunate that it's taken as long as it has, but I think the other side of this is we can't really look backwards and why didn't they do it? Now's the time to take us to the next place.
So I'm a member of the IALD and I'm a CLD. I have never heard of this advocacy group.
It just started.
Yeah. But
literally,
how does one join it? Because I imagine you're going to have I don't know, there are 4,000 members of the IALD. How much space do you have on the advocacy group? Because I think there are a lot of people
as many people as possible to get stuff done. And,
I'm a good get stuff doneer.
Lofty goals, and there's a whole thing. I'll send you after. And I, honestly, anybody out there listening, this probably goes against what we officially said last week, but if there's somebody interested in or has thoughts or comments, they're welcome to reach out to Lisa or I. But yeah, I think this just circles back, Lisa, to your point of we have the tools. They're all here. It's the lack of education and marketing on those things. And each of us doing that independently based on the common language, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the thing. The way that you explain lighting design is a little bit different than I will, than Lisa will.
Right.
And that's fine, but we need to also have those hooks that have the similar language. And ultimately, I think we talked about this with Rachel. Also, ultimately, I would like to see us get to a point where it's like, I like Lisa's work. That's why I want to work with Lisa, right? Just like I like Monet versus I like Manet. I want to work with Monet. I just like what Monet does. Or Picasso, right? We are artists in the end. And we want that artistry and styling and our visual concepts to be the thing. And then everything else is just just comes with it.
I would say it's more complex than that. Because while Lisa's work is exceptional, I reckon clients want to work with Lisa because of the service level she brings them, right? Like it's most professional lighting designers probably can do a really excellent job. Like I have yet to look at a design and be like, oh God, what did you do there? Like most people are really very proficient, but it's the interaction with the client and the value that the lighting designer brings to the team that I think is what clients are after. Owners are like, yes, I liked the way Lisa explained and talked to us in that, or the architect at least. We trust Lisa. We've worked with her before. Like that is what I think they come back for, not Lisa designed this detail for this cove so perfectly. She probably did. But her way of walking through and explaining and that, I bet that's what they're coming back for.
So it's not just how the design made them feel, which we talked about earlier, but also just how the personal interactions make them feel.
Yeah. I mean, everybody wants to work with people they enjoy working with. I think at the base level, like you're like, everyone has that like, oh, I loved working with that architect and the other architects. Like they do great work. Maybe we weren't a great personality fit, but there are, I think people just want to work with people who are fun and great to get along with and even keel and are passionate and want the project to succeed. And I think those lighting designers are the ones that you find clients constantly are coming back for.
Absolutely. Good point.
So something that someone on our advocacy group said that has also been sticking with me is, as a group, we as lighting designers do need to do better. He said that, you said the word proficient, and maybe we're all just proficient. And maybe if we were excellent, it wouldn't be so much of a hard sell. Like maybe people need to really see the difference that a lighting designer makes. And, like not just proficient, but let's be good. He was like, we're winning awards and we shouldn't be. I've got an inexperienced team. And he's like,
I know we're not that good.
Lighting design as a profession should be more elevated than it is. And that has stuck with me too.
I love that there's somebody on the advocacy group thinking and questioning, because like, you're right. There should be some like constructive criticism being given. Like there are excellent lighting designers out there. I can think of 25 just quickly, right? And I'm certain behind those 25 are the people actually coming up with the designs that we haven't met yet because they're not, out and about yet. But there are lighting designers who are perfectly average. I don't know that every project needs lighting designer excellence to make that project successful. Sometimes a project needs a simple lighting design, a simple budget, but the way you interact with the client is more impactful. And that project's not winning awards, but it is, impacting the people that use it and the client. So it's tough because like I think everyone wants to do IALD award-winning project work, but like realistically, that's probably 2 projects a career, I would guess, unless, you're somebody that's struck gold and are just getting one all the time. But like most of our projects are kind of semi-average stuff. And occasionally I do think lighting designers get in trouble where we try to maybe gold plate something that really just needs an aluminum solution, like,
yeah,
and that's
certainly get accused of that.
Yeah, like our industry could do a better job at being like, okay, yeah, I'd love to give you this downlight that can do color tuning and adjust, 359 degrees and aim and tilt and all these bells and whistles, but like you really could get by with this $80 downlight that does the same thing. I think that level of clarity and truth in what we design, probably we could work on a little bit more. I think that's where, when I've talked to clients about budget stuff, they're like, explain to me why this light costs $1 million. And you explain it and they go, well, do we need that? Do we need that? Do we need that? And then you go, you know what? You probably don't. It's a lovely downlight. And I know, manufacturer X did a great job on it, but manufacturer Y's downlight will suffice. And so like, maybe we need to look ourselves in the mirror and make sure we're providing them with the best solution, but maybe not the most excellent solution.
Right. But I think I completely agree. I think there's also times where, an iPad works and is just much more user friendly than that Chromebook. And,
Correct.
that iPad at $200 is not nearly as capable as that Chromebook, but man, it just does everything you need it to do for that $200, right? And it's got the Apple name on it, right?
Do you think if outside of the lighting groups, so manufacturers, reps, lighting designers, whatever, do you think of our clients and the contractors that we work with, ultimately the owners, if they had a better understanding of the cost of lighting equipment and what went into the cost of lighting equipment, like a $800 downlight and a $200 downlight have a difference in price, and we know inherently you pick it up and you're like, oh yeah, I know why I'd use one and I know why I'd use the other, but an owner or an architect doesn't necessarily perceive that difference other than a $600 delta. Like, what if we tried to educate those people in, just like you were saying, people know the difference between an iPad and a Chromebook immediately. They have no idea between the difference in XYZ downlight and other downlight. Like, how do we educate them? Because that helps them go, oh, I don't need that functionality. Can I have, I don't need that much RAM. Can we take it down a little bit?
So I have a great old story exactly to that. Is way, way, way back in the day. I was working on a project, and this is how old it is. It's a fluorescent job. But I was specifying an elliptipar wall wash T5, not T5HO, because I always thought that was too expensive of a lamp, to light a wall. And this developer turned to me and said, why the heck do lighting designers keep picking this ridiculous expensive manufacturer and product? I don't understand it. I'm sick and tired of it, right? So this is fluorescent. So I'm a kid at this point, right? Explaining this to the developer. Said, can you give me 2 weeks? Why? It's like, let me explain this to you in 2 weeks. So 2 weeks later, I brought in a fluorescent strip with a T8 lamp on it. I brought in a fluorescent strip T8 lamp with, one of those little metal reflector things. And I brought in a T8 elliptipar cove fixture, right? So I instantly just saved him $5 going from T5 to a T8 lamp. And it's the same length, right? Other than 1/4 of an inch on either end, right? And we lit the wall. And I brought him a distributor's cost for each of those 3 things when we lit the wall. And he instantly turned to me and said, in 20 years, I've never fully understood why y'all pick this, but absolutely that's what I want.
I mean,
Yeah.
you're right there. You had a convert.
And they think it's fixture. They think it's fixture picking. They don't understand that it's the light, the effect,
Yeah, I mean, we have another project right now where they're looking at 2 different color changing downlight things, and it's all about the manufacturer's name on one and this other manufacturer they've never heard of. And we're just conversing. It's like, no. Stop having this conversation. We are going to get together and we are going to look at product A and product B next to each other. And product B is going to be less expensive, but the trim and the detail and the look on a 12-foot ceiling residential installation is going to be a million times better on this other thing you've never heard of, which is less expensive. And I know you don't care about budget, but that's fine. Versus A that has this great name and everybody thinks is the most greatest things for sliced bread, but you have to see it, right? And so I would say in all these scenarios, it comes back to that visual. We get dragged into this. I can save you $50, which actually is $100, but it's $50 in the contractor's pocket and $50 to you. And as you said, Catherine, half the time you never even see that other $50. We just get dragged into that conversation. after all the beautiful conversation about feeling right and psychology and everything else, we get stuck in this conversation over $50.
So I've been doing a lot of thinking about how do you practically, because we know it's always going to come. There's always going to be a VE issue, maybe residences aside, but most other projects, there's always somebody that has the owner's ear. Like, what are practical things that you two have done in your projects that have worked to get ahead of the budget costs, or at least be a trusted member of that conversation versus the enemy in that conversation? Like, I mean, every now and it's not, oh, well, we write in our spec and we hold firm to our contract, because most really proficient lighting designers are doing that. So, like, what are the actionable things that Susie, lighting designer, could go and start practicing? And if everybody started practicing these things, maybe in 15 months, there's so much influx of everybody doing it that it starts to kind of shift momentum.
The thing that worked the best for me was telling the future that, hey, when the contractor gets on this job, and this was residential, when the contractor gets on this job, they're going to tell you that I'm nuts and I've made bad choices. And when they do, please call me. And made a client for life, because it happened.
Because you're like, hey, I love that future telling.
I think our most successful thing has been providing, right after a release, line item pricing direct from a distributor for the entire job, where it basically says, give us a credit card, cut us a check, give us a PO. And when the contractor comes back and says, oh, it's so much more money, the owner has a quote right here.
So the
says how much it
owner
costs.
Could call your distributor and say, all right, here's my credit card number. I'm going to buy this package.
Yeah. And
as a way of back checking the contractor when they come going, it's this $500,000 over budget.
Yeah, and we've had clients that either A, hand that quote to the electrician and say, hey, buy this.
Mm-hmm.
We've had projects where the owner buys it. We charge an additional fee to manage it for them. And we've had contractors say, okay, well, then that's the price. I'll buy it from my distributor. And that's the end of the conversation.
Before you get there, do you have an idea of what the budget is? Or this is
no.
My sticking point is like, there's always a budget, folks. We know there's
always a budget.
There's always a budget. I got a budget when I go shopping for the groceries. Yeah. Right. No. Like, and how do you get those numbers out of things? I'm like, establishing budget would be great. If you could just give us, is it $8? If it's $5, that's fine. Tell us what it is. We can.
Right.
Most of us are pretty good at math, because I would say most of us are, relatively engineering inclined. Like, we could do some serious addition and get to your budget.
And another thing that we've done on airport projects is we don't provide manufacturer name or model numbers until the absolute last moment possible. And we tell the pricing consultant, the architect, everybody else, this is how much you hold. And we've fought it. We've fought it for a long time through all the different phases, through those airport projects. But I am happy to say that we have a project that we're doing right now that it was bought as specified, no mod, submittals are in our hand, and it's done.
Okay, I have questions on this. So you have a fixture schedule that is devoid of manufacturer and contract and catalog number until like 95% CDs. And then you're just like, hey, F1 fixture is $450. And do you publish pricing on your fixture schedule?
I won't even go that far sometimes. I'll just
you say the project costs
$22 billion light fixture package or whatever it is, right? Just hold this.
Wow,
lighting and light
I didn't
fixtures.
know you were doing this.
That's such an interesting way to do it.
It depends. I mean, really, every single project's a little bit different.
But having like 15 ideas on how to manage it helps, because doing the same thing every time, it's like Einstein says, that's just the definition of stupidity. Or like, if we do the same thing over and over and over again and expect different results, like.
Yeah, I will say the other side of it is that we do have a pretty strong statement not written that basically says to the rep agencies and the manufacturers, who's the lighting designer on a More Lights project?
Is it more
And per
like?
our second podcast, as I just did, just stop. Who's the lighting designer on a More Lights project? Oh, you are, of course. So then when you change something, am I not the lighting designer? Well, yeah. Well, again, you just said our firm was the lighting designer, but you decided there was something else to be used. So are you the lighting designer now?
Do you take on the liability of the project networking?
Well, so that's a totally separate conversation that I think is really important to have. And it's a pretty big veer from where we're going right now. But like we also, if we actually had a project that, we only specified dolly controls. It's cheaper. There's no other way to go. And we had a project that decided they were going to go 0 to 10. The owner said it was fine. The contractor said it was cheaper. And then we got submittals and we rejected all of it. And they came back to us and said, well, you have to approve this. I said, I don't have to do anything. It's not going to work. And we can't stand behind it. So, well, somebody has to approve this submittal because we can't order anything without an approved submittal. I said, well, whoever made that suggestion is the person who should approve it. And, it's funny. I asked this question at Enlighten this year. I asked a couple of different lighting designers, like, what happens when something gets submitted that's different than what you specified, and then you get the submittal? What do you do? And I was extremely surprised that about 90% of the people I talked to said, well, we then sign off on it. I said, so you just took on all the liability, 100% of the liability as to that alternate selection. And you also just, Lisa, you got to stop me if you think I'm wrong, but we remove this. But you also just degraded the profession and your firm.
I think people have a lot of fear in the full rejection of something that's not as specified. I think that people get really concerned that, the next project or, that if they don't do that, there's a lot of fear that they might lose future income and project work. I also think it's very difficult if you don't have a budget to wholly reject a submittal because you can't actually prove that the submittal that you have fits the budget because you don't have a budget to do it.
We don't, as soon for us,
You
as
guys
soon
just,
as a
if
major
it's not
deliverable
as
is done,
specified,
we know how much it costs.
well, yeah, you know how much it costs, but you don't know what the client's budget is.
No, but
Maybe.
we know what it is. We give it to them. Their eyes are wide open.
Right.
If the project has to reduce costs, we're in the middle of a project right now that we said how much the lighting should cost almost 9 months ago. The contractor never listened to us. They finally priced the whole job architecturally and lighting, and the project is massively over budget. And now the conversation is, how do we get to the budget? And I said, well, where do you want to go?
Yeah, what budget?
We want to be $1. Okay, cool. Here's our fee to design the project for $1 because we told you what it was and you approved it and you told us to proceed on.
Okay, so do they approve that fee? Because I think there's another level of fear
Still
that people
waiting.
are nervous to do that. And I agree with you. I think we have to be firmer.
We are business owners. We get paid for time. If there is somebody else that can meet your visual requirements, and unfortunately, the fear has to go away based on standing on your scruples and standing on your morals and standing on this is the way we do things.
Well, and that's where having a bigger group standing up behind you that we all say this is the way we do things.
Every lighting designer I've ever worked with, they act like this too. It's a normal thing versus I have had very few projects where in my previous several jobs people have done that.
Yeah,
And I'm very impressed with your bravery.
It is a rarity, but we obviously it's more lights, not because I'm Avi Moore. It's more lights because we like the spin on more lights, less lights. It's a great pun kind of thing. But the reality is the team had a conversation and we started looking at our competitors around the country. Great firms, people that do amazing work and getting amazing work. And we got some feedback on, how opinionated and how we do some of these things and that we do walk away and we are very strong-handed on some of these things. I hate that our clients get screwed. It kills me. It keeps me up at night. And I will fall on a sword to this is stupid, right? And so we had a conversation internally as a firm and we said, do we soften? Do we change our direction? Do we want to be more like Frank or Sam or Joe, or I'm just totally making up names here. And we had a no, that's not who we want to be. And if that means that we stay a 4-person firm that's doing the most amazing stuff and we are all happy, fine. It's just not a place that we've decided we want to go. And hopefully through the podcast, through education, through all these other things, and meeting great people like Lisa and Katherine and Rachel and everybody else that we've talked to, right? And what we do becomes less of a, wait, it's not just more lights. Like everybody's doing this. They just happen to be the loudest one we've talked to in the last 6 months.
I mean, as an industry, we need to get aligned and we are stronger together. If every project is like, nope, that's not as specified, or pay me to review that, please, and I will give you my professional opinion, but I need to be compensated for the effort that this is going to require outside of the scope. There are a couple lighting designers who do that, who are very firm in that, but they're in the minority. I think the majority of lighting folks are more kind of bowing to the whims of the contracting team for whatever reason. It's probably a little bit more complex than that. But I would love it if we were at that point where we were all like, no.
I was just going to sum it up, but I was going to throw out one other crazy thing that we all seem to be wheeling to the bends of. And Lisa and I have talked about this, is this whole pay when paid nonsense too. Like, I think that now obviously there's rules and all kinds of things about changing that as an industry. But there's no reason we all have to do the things the way they've done because that's the way we've done them for 50 years.
Right.
And the seeds of change are coming. Look at how fast LED changed. And Katherine, I would throw out this other thing too. 3-line spec and LED product. Good luck. Not possible. That has to change as well, right?
That's a waste of time.
The world has to change a little bit, and we can't keep doing things the way it's always been done, and we can't keep saying, well, that's the way it is, blah, 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 right?
How are you changing the pay when paid situation? Like, gosh, I think everybody would like to have less.
Lots of insane ideas that have come to me through my Vistage group. Not a single one of them has worked, but I've tried every single one of them.
But when you find the one, you'll tell us.
I mean, what about starting with a retainer? That's not insane.
That I've tried.
I have worked at places where with a new client, they ask for a retainer, and a lot of them are fine with that. It's funny because my husband is in an industry that sells and manufactures like cell phone and radio tower equipment, and I mentioned whatever the kind of industry standard AR timeline, and he was appalled.
I know.
And he's like, how does your industry function? Because this is a stupid thing. And I was like, oh, that's not normal. And he was like, no, it's not normal. Like, what are you doing? And I was like, I don't know how to change that.
I know.
Anyone got any great ideas? I think every single lighting design firm out there would love to hear it.
Well, and it's not just lighting designers, right? It runs the entire
Right, the
gamut.
architects. It's not like the architects are sitting on Scrooge
and the
McDuck
architects
piles
too,
of money. Yeah,
and
like
it's a construction side too. We have a project in Milwaukee that was being held up because of a note about stainless steel screws.
And nobody was getting paid?
Yeah, and there was emails back and forth from the structural engineer that just weren't found until somebody finally reached out to us that said, "Oh yeah, these other things are fine."
Wow.
So it's on both sides. My theory is we all have lines of credit. Everybody does on both sides of the design side and the construction side. And I think it's that, this is my funny cahooting, but the banks all know that we all have lines of credit. So they're not in any rush to release the money because in one way, they're just making money on the other side. I think it's important that we all continue to talk about, well, just because it's always been done this way doesn't mean that it needs to continue being done this way. And as we come together better through IALD, CLD, we voice these ideas in this podcast and other podcasts, we can hopefully slowly change the world. Because it's not just more lights or STEK Design or Reed Burkett lighting design that is doing these things. We are all doing them in a little bit different ways. We're calling them different things, but we're all doing the same thing. It's just the different clients don't realize that when you work with a lighting designer, they're doing these things, right? And they're having these struggles with payroll and things like that. So
I'm glad you brought it back up there, Avi. We're changing the world. I wanted to end on a positive note.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back. You said something early, Katherine, about how much power we have as lighting designers. And there's a story that I told recently of, this was just a throwaway moment. Our team was out mocking up some sample. It was a long throw, color changing LED, and we shined it at the top of a steeple a couple of blocks away. Just like, oh wow, narrow beam, and oh look at that, so cool. And this woman was walking by, and she stopped and said, "I've had a really bad week, and I just wanted you to know that seeing that light up there gave me hope."
Oh my gosh!
Right? We have power.
Lighting is, it is so powerful. Every day there's like a beautiful sunset or sunrise. I'm like, boys, come outside. You gotta look at the sunrise. They're like, Mom, you're so obsessed with this. But I'm like, look how beautiful it is. Like lighting has the ability to just, like healthcare projects, are one of my favorite to design because I love how on somebody's quite possibly the worst day of their life, we can help be impactful and help the space that they're in getting whatever news or results, make that just incrementally less horrible. It's so powerful. And we're so privileged to be able to have such impact on so many people's lives. Like, I don't think anyone really realizes it, but like a lighting designer is impacting everywhere you go today.
very much so. I don't know Lisa, when you say that, it always makes me think of the first 3 words in the Old Testament. In the beginning, there was light.
Yeah.
It depends on whose language, and the words
I was like,
change
that's
a little
actually
bit.
6 words.
But
you're
the
good.
first
You're good.
few words.
But it's early. Light is very early in there.
Yeah, it's very early on.
Light
right?
is it's the sun is likely what allowed us to leave the ocean and become Homo sapiens.
Light is life.
Well, this has been an amazing conversation. I really appreciate you joining us. Everyone, please also check out the Whelmed podcast. We didn't get to chat about it too much, but definitely the podcast on my list that I'm listening to all the time. This one, we just put it out there, but
you don't listen to
that
your own
whelmed
podcast.
one, I'm like addicted to it. The next one comes out, I'm ready to listen.
We appreciate that. Yeah, thank you for letting me join your podcast. I love that you guys are creating a space to advocate and give lighting designers the ability to share their own thoughts. And I love that you created that advocacy group. I think it's, people like you are going to help the rest of us, be better business people.
Yeah, we all get better. One of us gets better, we all get better. That's the amazing part of this community.
Group hug.
Awesome. Group hug. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Lighting matters. As we wrap up, we want to reiterate how much we value your time. And we hope you found it as much fun to listen to as we had creating it. Remember to like it and share this content with your friends and colleagues.
The opinions expressed are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the official positions of the sponsors. Our content has general application, but we recommend obtaining personalized guidance from a professional IALD lighting designer, such as RBLD or More Lights, for your next endeavor.